My name is Merrill, CEO of Mark Research. I'm a 35-year veteran of the research and insights community and the host of our podcast, On the Mark. On the Mark is focusing on executives and thought leaders in the world sharing their insights, strategies, and personal experiences. I promise this podcast will be filled with tough, pointed questions with real, insightful, and emotional answers. I can't tell you how excited I am for today. 3 guests, 3 professionals, 3 of my favorite people in the insights community. Today's guests are Anita Watkins, Global Head of Qualitative of Kantar. Anita, welcome to the On the Mark podcast.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Karen Morgan, President of Morgan Search International. Karen, hope you're doing great. Thanks for being on the Mark podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
And Simon Chadwick, Managing Partner at Cambiar Consulting, and in my opinion, the man who knows everything about the insights industry. Simon, welcome to the On the Mark podcast.
Thank you, Merrill. Great to be here.
All right, guys, we're going to start. Anita, I just drew your straw. You get the short straw, but I'm going to start with an easy question, Anita. So there I am minding my own business in Brooklyn, New York at Quirks in March of this year. So about 8 months ago. And everybody started to talk about the pandemic. Frankly, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't spell it. Didn't think it would have any effect. Went home to Dallas thinking the same thing. And then a week later, boom, everybody's working out of the house. But the first area that got whacked with the pandemic was qualitative. So here's my easy question. What are the thoughts going through your mind? Because your title is Queen of Qualitative in the world. I mean, I've said on numerous times that you are the most important and powerful qualitative researcher in the entire world. Boom. This hit you square in the face. Take us through that, would you?
Oh my gosh. Well, absolutely did it hit us square in the face, because just 3 weeks prior to that early March date that you mentioned, we had hosted over 60 qualitative leaders from all over the globe in London for a meeting in early February. And at that point, it was really only some of our colleagues from China and Singapore and Japan who were not able to travel in. So, of course, we took precautions and, had hand sanitizer and had people, but at that point, we weren't really even thinking about this spreading as we were at the early March stage. And as soon as that happened, I panicked. I have to be honest, as a leader, you think you're in control of everything, but we had $150 million worth of revenue in 2019 that was face-to-face worldwide, and it's also on my shoulders. And we had some markets who had never done any kind of technology qualitative ever. So we had to quickly get busy and start, rapidly changing course. We went into serious modes of getting platforms approved for local markets who had not been doing work, training and mentoring from other countries, leaning in to help. And initially having lots of team conversations and, of course, client conversations about how can we take the work that's already in the pipeline and pivot quickly to move to online and still ensure that we can answer those client questions properly, and yet still think about, okay, now how do we manage to also save any upcoming business that we were planning for the year with new clients? So it was quite a moment of panic and then taking a deep breath and then just starting to get to work.
It's funny. Len Schlesinger, it was COO of The Limited. He also, at one point, was president of Babson, and he's also on the faculty of Harvard Business School. And I've been taught by Len and was in a class through Omnicom University at Babson. And he talked about an oh shit moment, right? He talked about your best performer, your highest revenue producer walks in and gives notice, that oh shit moment, right? And I got to believe that was for you. I mean, think about that. 150 million of face-to-face work, global, affecting 900 or 950 qualitative researchers. And I've got to believe, because Kantar has some of the best and brightest leadership team. I mean, it's impressive, seriously. But I assume you had to make some cuts pretty quickly. They weren't sitting around twiddling their thumbs saying, oh, we'll get through this, no problem.
we didn't make any changes initially, but we had to really look at, okay, what are we going to do in terms of making this shift and getting people prepared? And you have your go-to team, I'm sure, in your organization and through your career, and you have those people in Kantar. So immediately, I called up my experts in the technology digital qual field all over the world and started to kind of put together a plan about how are we going to actually tackle this problem and very quickly. So there was a lot of weekend work, there was a lot of very long days in March, and by about middle May, I have to say that we were able to pivot so quickly that we went from about 15% of our work being digital in 2019 to over 90% in mid-May. So within about 2 months, we made a shift, and it was our revenue had been down. Of course, we had clients stopping projects, and some not bidding because of going into lockdowns and whatnot. But to be able to shift that quickly was, I think, quite impressive, and I think it speaks to the power of people just rolling up their sleeves, leaning in to help each other, even when it might not help themselves in their own market. We had markets from China helping Japan to shift to online, from the US to helping, other countries in Latin America. I mean, it was really a global effort that, I'm really proud of, actually. Looking back on it, I'm starting to kind of get emotional thinking about it.
If you need to take a moment and, get a tissue, I wish I could hand it to you, but we're 1,000 miles apart. But I mean, it is emotional because what we've gone through is really hard, Anita.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, and before I move on to Karen Morgan, and this is just a yes, no question. I'm really interested in this. Is you've gone from 15% digital to 90%, which, by the way, pat on the shoulder, that is impressive. Is it more profitable? Yes or no?
We're working on that. I mean, in some places we have been able to maintain good margins, but in general, in the past, we have not seen the move to digital be necessarily profitable across the board like it might have been in the quantitative field.
That's great. Well, Karen Morgan, the pandemic hasn't touched the search consulting business. I know everybody is hiring at a record clip, right?
Right. It's booming.
You've been in business how many years, Karen?
20 years.
20 years. And I know this is the most money you've ever made in those 20 years, Karen. I know you are booming,
Oh, yeah.
Placing people left and right. I mean, geez, if it hit Qualitative first, it probably hit you right afterwards, like a second afterwards. I assume a lot of open recs went away. How have you been able to navigate through the pandemic?
Yeah, well, Merrill, thank you for understanding that, because I think some people had absolutely understood that immediately. And then some people I was talking to seemed to think that my business would be booming.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, no. Yeah, I mean, it was extraordinary. I felt like someone just shut off the lights. I've never seen anything like it. There were so many unknowns, and most companies just hit pause. So, really, a lot of what I've been doing is just really trying to be supportive and helping people where I can, and sort of just getting creative. And just what I'm hearing from a lot of people, which is so difficult, is they're out there looking, and it's really, really hard. Obviously, there just aren't jobs for the amount of people. So it's just really about being, just being supportive, giving advice, trying to get also just, the deep relationships I do have, talking to them. At the beginning, my clients were saying, look, we're hitting pause, but we're definitely still open to having conversations as long as people understand it's more with an eye to the future. And so that made me a little optimistic. And then I think that went away. The good news is there are definitely some glimmers of hope. And obviously there is hiring going on, right? And there's a lot of people referring each other. It's a small community, which I totally understand. We're all trying to help each other.
Oh, yeah.
So I've just been, the positive thing is I've had time to sort of focus on some things, as we all, you don't always have time to focus on certain things in your business when you're sort of in the business. And then I've been doing more, outreach, and also doing a lot of, podcasts and I'm actually about to launch my own YouTube channel just with career advice and also hiring advice to contribute. I mean, it's been very interesting and humbling. I went from being incredibly busy to, the lights went out.
And I'm so sorry, but we will get past this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Whether it's 2021 will be the best year you ever had, Karen. I can't speak to that, but I can tell you it'll be a heck of a lot better than 2020. But, Simon, when I think of your business, right? And because I talk to a lot of CEOs, and I know, you've gone to, and you're a big cheerleader of the CEO Summit, and most of the same CEOs that I do. And look, a lot of them, there's no playbook for this, right? I mean, there just isn't. We went through this in 9/11. We went through the financial crisis in 07, 08, 09, and the dot-com bust. We've gone through and lived through a lot of that stuff, and even beyond that, right? But there's no playbook for a pandemic. Most of us didn't even know what the hell it was in February, March. But I do know this. You're a ridiculously smart guy. Your team at Cambiar is without question some of the best and brightest and most intelligent people in the industry. Part of me thinks your businesses could be booming during this because from a consulting standpoint, they all need help and helping CEOs navigate through this. And then from an expense standpoint, I see it's like, no, we can't go out, we can't hire a consultant right now to help us. So fill in the gap. I mean, am I kind of right a little bit?
A little bit. So our business falls into thirds. A third of it is strategic consulting, operational consulting. A third of it is M&A, and a third of it is corporate training. The M&A business, of course, went away, like Karen was saying, the lights just went out. It's beginning to come back a little now. The consulting business, I think there was a lot of shock, a lot of panicking, and then taking a deep breath. And to be honest, what I was trying to do during that time was to really provide a public service, I guess, as to, okay, take a deep breath. Here, what do you need to do? Just taking what Anita was saying, it's very interesting because SMR came out in April and said the industry was going to decline by 22% this year.
Yep.
Their latest data paints a slightly different picture, that it's probably only going to be, around about 17% only.
And what's the universe on that? Is that 80 billion, Simon? How much is that?
No, well, in the States, it's about 14 million, but in the world, it's 47 billion.
Billion, right. Okay, so 47 billion, and they're saying 17% down. Got it.
Yeah. But a lot of it was really because people were pivoting very, very fast. As Anita was saying, what they did with Kantar Qualitative, the move towards digital, people did react. Once they got over the panic, they did react. But one of the things that they really had to think about, and this is interesting also from a qualitative point of view, was which of these changes that we're seeing is going to be permanent and which is not? And how do I invest in those that are permanent? And where do I reallocate my resources in those changes that are not permanent? And so I spent a lot of time at the beginning actually just talking to people for free.
Nice.
Because I didn't really want to make money off of their sort of misfortune. And that has led us to now consulting contracts as people really are revisiting their strategies for the next 2, 3, 4 years. The interesting thing on the other side of our business, the training side, is that all of our training was in person. And so we had to move it to digital platforms very fast indeed. And that, funnily enough, just took off. Once we'd mastered the digitization of training, corporate clients, were looking to really train their people up in how to react. And so we've seen that side of the business do really well. It's been somewhat weird. One business closed down, one took a pause, and one took off.
Nice. Well, it's interesting. So I know you said you had given out some free advice, and I know you had met with people and done consulting, and you're trying to figure out what trend is here to stay and what's not going away. So if I might be so bold, can you give us, a piece of an insight of, listen, what is here to stay in 2021 and beyond, Simon?
I think the most obvious is in qualitative. I think Anita's right that some of it will go back to face-to-face. People do like to be, face-to-face with customers and consumers and people. But I think an awful lot of it will remain digital as clients become more and more used to that. In quantitative, certainly in markets such as Europe, I think we're going to see yet more movement and acceleration of the movement to online. Funnily enough, one of the things that is coming back, and this is again, especially in Europe, is phone.
Wow.
Particularly, yeah. Not massive, but it's reversed the trend that it had been on for 10 years, more maybe, and particularly in B2B. I think one of the things I've noticed, Merrill, is that some people, as I say, made very agile, very fast decisions. Others had already taken strategic decisions before the pandemic. And depending on what those decisions were, they either, were incredibly lucky and grew. One company that you and I know well had made the decision 18 months prior that it was going to do only strategic work and only digital. And they're growing by 30% this year. Others, who maybe had invested in certain industries like travel and tourism or automotive, they're hurting so badly. And it may well be that, those sectors are going to take a long, long time to come back. And so if you're invested in those sectors, you probably want to look at, investing in others for the foreseeable future.
Well, look, the reality is, Simon, and you know this, with your elaborate background and experience, you've been in the boardroom with so many companies talking about, are you a generalist or you're a specialist, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
there's been a lot of people who have been, oh, you got to be a specialist. Okay, let me help you. If you're a specialist in the wrong vertical, you got crushed. If you're a specialist in the wrong methodology, you got crushed. Seriously. And I think Mark is having an unbelievable year. And, when you ask why, luck is the first three reasons. But we did go to digital, and we had some terrific partners after making so many mistakes with some of the partners that we had chosen over the last 7 or 8 years. My mistakes are paramount, huge. But finally, we got it right with companies like Zappy Store. And, we went deeper and wider in a lot of our accounts, and we actually opened up different verticals. So we were able to diversify. And I think companies who did that are in a little bit better position than ones that were a specialist, for sure,
Yeah, I think vertical specialization in particular, was luck of the draw.
It was. Yep.
And I think methodological, I think those who were really keeping up with the trends, really paying attention to the trends, had already moved away from methodologies that were going to crush them. I think it was those who hadn't moved, those who were comfortable being an old-fashioned research shop, that got mega crushed. But yeah, luck. There was a heck of a lot of that going around, a lot of it bad, some of it good.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thankfully, I think I spent extra to buy some good luck this year. But hey, Anita, I want to get back to something you said, which I thought was really interesting. You said, this has been a learning process. And I'm going to have a little bit of a twist here, Anita, if you don't mind, which is, what have you learned about yourself in the last 8 months during the pandemic?
Wow. Well, that's a big question.
Listen, I told you, we rehearse this every day for the last 3 weeks, right, Anita?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I've learned about myself is that I'm probably a little more resilient than I maybe thought I was. I think, for someone like me, this obviously I did not take the biggest challenge of, the biggest hit in other words, in terms of ways of working and whatnot, because we could pivot to digital and things like that. But for me personally, I'm an extrovert. So, I love getting out in the world. I love going to the office every day. I love, chatting over coffee with a young person who's just gotten into the business. I love, traveling to a new market, a new country, and visiting the team there. And, I love hosting a client panel like I did last year in Dubai. I really like being in the world. So for me personally, since we're talking personal, to sit into, what is basically my home office, which is a guest bedroom makeshift, with this antique desk, to come up to this room every day and to try to give it your all, it's been a challenge for somebody like me who feeds off of other people. And so, even when I didn't feel like it, I've tried to just search down deep to say, okay, keep going, keep pushing. And even though your tank isn't getting refilled because you're not seeing people, which is where you get your energy, you're still needing to bring your very best every day to the business. And so I've had to just adjust on what the very best for me in this role looks like. And sometimes the very best is just being there available to talk to somebody in another country on a Zoom call and to listen to their problems and to be able to help brainstorm and answer those. And it's not necessarily as glamorous or as exciting as it was in 2019, but it's necessary. And at the end of the week, I can still feel like, okay, you're still bringing the best of yourself to the role, even though the shape of this looks quite different.
Yeah, no, well said. So, Karen, before I ask you a question, what color hair do you have? Because we're not on a Zoom call.
I have not been, well, I had my hairdresser come up here once and that's it. So it's a mess.
But what's the color? It can still be a mess, but a different color.
With some, some gray coming through.
Oh, okay. Well, because over the years, I've seen you with red, I think a little orange once in a while, right? I mean, you really have your hair color from time to time can change, right?
It can, but yeah, I've been very, very cautious through this because my husband's asthmatic. So, I'm just making it work. But yes, obviously, like all of us, I'm on a lot of Zoom calls. So I may need to figure something out. But I'm missing, yes, I need to put some something back in.
Karen, let me ask you, with regard to your business, what excites you for 2021? I know obviously the close of 2020 and obviously a vaccine that we all can use, but what excites you for your business next year?
Well, I'm excited for it to start, and I am optimistic that that things will improve. I'm excited to see how, what Anita was talking about, the way that companies have pivoted and how this has impacted the research community, what that's going to look like in terms of talent, how I can help with that. One thing I'm a little concerned about based on the last recession, and I'm sort of seeing some of those trends happening, is that, you were talking about sort of specialization versus generalization. I feel like, and I'd love to hear what Simon and Anita feel about this too, and you, that pre-pandemic, as we all know, it was a very, very, very tight talent market. But some of that I felt was self-imposed. I felt like we were just looking for so much in one individual. We didn't recover. Right. A lot of the jobs went away in the last recession. And what happened is companies were like, ooh, goody, we can do, just as much with less people. And that trend has sort of continued on to the point where I think we were kind of close to a breaking point. I was hearing from a lot of people, burnout, that they were also really frustrated if they were out there looking, because they would, have to have, like, the interview process would go on and on and on and jumping through hoops. And it was really frustrating. And so there was, I think, a lot of frustration. And I was talking about this because I thought it was getting to a breaking point. Now, obviously, now there's more talent available. But what I'm hearing and seeing from some clients is, well, we really only want to talk to people who are employed, as if being laid off or furloughed right now is somehow a reflection on you. Now, certainly some companies probably clean house a little bit. But there are a lot of great people out there that I'm speaking with who are terribly frustrated. So, what I want to do is help companies sort of maybe be a bit more open-minded and creative. And I don't know, coming through this, I'm not sure which way that's going to go.
Yeah, one of the things that really concerns me for 21 is I'm talking to more and more CEOs, and they're getting their talent poached, right? So they've been loyal during this process, as I have been. And the reality is, if you think about it, right, back in the day, it's, hey, I need somebody with 7, 8 years of experience. I need somebody who worked for a client organization or supplier. And oh, by the way, I need them based in Cincinnati or LA or Chicago, right? So it was a little bit more of a limiting search based on geography. Now it's with the geography away, right? With its, hey, I just need somebody with 6 or 7 years of experience. I don't care where they work. They can work out of their house. I think what's going to happen is a lot more people are going to get poached, and they're going to jump for $7,000, $8,000 more or $9,000. And I think they have to be just concerned and aware that that could just be short-lived. And if they jump and it doesn't work out, they might be in a bad situation. So I don't know if any of you guys are seeing that. That is a concern of mine for 2021 for sure, that too many younger people, especially, they jump for, oh my God, I'm going to get free coffee. I'm going to get a new job, right? Where I've had 7 jobs in my career, somebody who's younger may have 7 jobs in their first 15 years, right? Simon, do you have any comments on that? Do you agree with what I said or not really?
I don't know. I've been talking to people who have said, I've been offered this job. They don't care where I work. So I'm quite happy to work from home and occasionally, go and see people in the office. And if they're happy with that, then that's great. I think there are others who will want to join a sort of physical community, and they probably will be more judicious in their job choices. I haven't seen as much as you have or Karen in terms of poaching as yet. I have seen an explosion of people setting up on their own. I don't know if you've seen that, Karen, but it's interesting. Just in our little corner of the woods, when I started Cambiar 16 years ago, there were just 2 companies, ourselves and one other, and we bought the other one a few years later. Now, when I look at people who claim to do the same thing, there's approaching 100. And a lot of these are people who've been laid off and they're at the later times in their careers. And they're going, okay, I'm going to set up. And so there's a bit of a fragmentation going on. And I personally, to Karen's point about what sort of talent is going to be sought, I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of companies are going to be looking for people who are in the data analytics field, people who may well trend younger and cheaper. But one thing I do hope for, Merrill, next year is that all the focus on diversity will actually start to come through. And we'll see this in the following years, and we'll see a much more diverse workforce and insights. I really, really hope to see that.
I think we will. I think there's a lot of people doing some great work. Women in research are doing that. I know that.
Color and insights.
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. Well said. And I think that everybody is really trying. I mean, that when I talk to a lot of CEOs, we have discussions about that. It's interesting. I want to get back to the point that you just said about 100 competitors or whatever. Think about what the cost of entry is.
0.
Well, I was going to say, is it $2,000 because you got to have a computer, right? So if you leave your company, not everybody has a personal computer. It's a company computer. But you need a broken phone, a pencil, and you need basically a name, which, okay, on the mark, I came up with that in about 3 seconds. It's not hard to come up with a name. And the reality is the entry point here is nothing. It's a couple $1,000 max. And the reality is if they have a few connections. If they're as old as I am and been in the industry for a long time, they have some connections, they have some friendships, and they'll get some work. And they can make a go of it if they get a couple projects. So I totally agree, and I've seen that same trend. Hey guys, final comment. What do you say to people who are struggling, to people who are having a rough go of it or in transition and can't find anything? Simon, what do you want to leave them, the people who are in that boat right now?
I think the key to it is really networking like crazy and not being afraid. One very personal example, my daughter graduated with a master's. She'd been 10 years in the industry. She was switching careers. She couldn't find anybody who was going to hire. So she set up on her own. She's doing great.
Good for her. Good for her. Nice. Anita, what do you want to add?
I think networking is spot on. You never know when opportunities are going to present themselves. And often, the opportunities are so fresh and new that they don't even get posted before they're filled, So I think that's one thing that I've noticed is just keeping in close contact with your network and letting people know you're available and what you're interested in, I think is really good. I know I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the last few months, and I'm keeping those connections alive so that when we're in a position to, do something, then, I can make those connections for them at a local level. So, I think that's spot on. Absolutely. And keep reading, keep studying, keep in the know, because there's so much great thought leadership out there right now. There's so much to read. I feel like I'm always behind on my reading, but it's great.
Good. That's good. Good takeaway. All right, Miss Morgan, your last final comment from you before we sign off.
Well, I absolutely agree with Anita and Simon. I think it's network. Do not be shy. Reach out to everyone, anyone, and also just reach out to people and just say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation, a general conversation. Don't even make it necessarily about I'm looking or whatever, because I feel like people are so open to connecting right now. I mean, I've connected with all sorts of people that, just to have a chat, just stay visible. I know it's so difficult and my heart goes out, and believe me, there have been days where I've just, by the end of the day, I just want to break down because I can't help enough people. I'm sure we all feel like that, but I think what I will say is it will get better. And what I've seen over the many, many years I've been doing this, the people who just stay on it and keep going, and even sometimes it might take a long time and you think it's never going to happen, it will.
Well, we are going to end with that, Karen. Very profound. It will get better. Karen, Anita, and Simon, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Thanks again for listening. This is the On the Mark podcast. My name is Merrill Dubrow. Have a great day.